this is really meaningful to me to get to be here in this sanctuary together with you. My parents were married on this platform, and they got married because my mom was pregnant with me. So I stood with them on this stage. Well, I didn't stand, I was floating, or I floated with them on this stage. I hope my mom would be okay with me telling you that. I think, yeah, it's a simple math equation. And the first job I ever had working for a church was as a 20-year-old working for the Exeter Church of God, leading worship on this stage. So this space means a lot to me. And I was thankful for the reminder as we were worshiping, and I'm not the answer man. And I'm not the new pope. I am a son whose parents prayed over him the same way that these parents prayed over their kids. And I'm trying to sort this out too, right along with you. So thank you for the grace and the prayers. One of my favorite memories while I'm in here going down memory lane with you guys is I'd led worship once, and John Uri came to me and said, "Do you want to work as a worship leader?" And I was like, "Oh, is that a thing? You can get paid for this?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll lead worship for your youth group church thing." The Rock, I think, is what we called it here in the sanctuary. And the first Sunday I had, Doobie was on my worship team. Do you guys know Charles Doobie? Charles Doobie's on my worship team. I'm leading worship right here. There's a gal who will remain unnamed standing right here, and Doobie is on the other side of her. And I look over during worship, and Doobie's plugging this ear. And he's a little bit of a choir snob. So he's like trying to find his, pitch. The rest of us are worshiping, and Doobie's like, ooh, ooh. And what was happening was the gal who was singing with us, Lord bless her, was worshiping, but not in any way that anyone would want to hear. And so it's sinking Doobie's ship, and I'm like, man, what do I do? Your first day on the job, you're going to tell someone like, hey, the Lord would love it if you would turn it down a little bit. So anyway, I marched to the back to the guy in the soundboard, and I'm like, hey, turn her off in the mains. Almost like let her think that she's leading worship, but don't subject other people to what's happening up here. So he's like, okay. So I come back, I lead worship, and then after the service, I see him leave with this gal holding hands because they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and I didn't know it. Well, anyway, lots of memories flood me when I get in here, so it's good to be here. And I too want to say Happy Mother's Day to the moms here, and also recognize, I think Noel keeps referring to it as the weight of this day, and it is a weighty day. It's not, for many of us, an easy day. It is true. It's really true that no one can love you like your mother. But as a result of that, the flip side of that coin is that no one can hurt you quite like your mother. And if you're here and you're a parent, you know that no one has the power to destroy you quite like your own kids, right? So because family is the greatest joy, it can also be a source of some pretty intense pain. And we recognize that on this day. And probably you're like, geez, Trav, that got really dark really fast. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that the church is similar. The church is the family of God, and so it comes with some of those same complexities. And I can honestly stand before you and say, nothing has wounded me deeper than the church. Sheep bite. And there's been no greater joy or privilege in my life than serving Jesus's church. And so it's complicated, isn't it? Kind of like family's complicated. Because the church is beautiful and because it's meaningful, it is also painful. Most the best things in life are both pain and privilege. And I think I'm doing you a service by sharing that with you. And I'm not saying to any of you something you don't know. And Exeter Valley Church is in a transition right now. And the peep grasses have decided that grace has lifted for them to continue to lead. And that has led to uncertainty, right? And uncertainty leads to all kinds of things, doesn't it? Noel already mentioned this, but uncertainty is the soil for fear to grow in. I've seen uncertainty in my own life produce quite a bit of control, a desire to pretend like I'm not vulnerable. Uncertainty is the soil for gossip. Uncertainty can produce all kinds of things. Uncertainty is also the soil that faith grows in. Uncertainty is also the soil of learning to trust God, right? I heard a story once of a young man who took a pilgrimage to India to find Mother Teresa. And he was wanting to have Mother Teresa pray for him. And so after making this long pilgrimage to India, he got to stand before Mother Teresa and make a request. And do you know what he said to her? He said, I want you to pray for me, and I want you to pray that I would have clarity. And Mother Teresa said, I won't pray for that. And he was like, well, I've traveled quite a ways to get here, and it was not exactly easy to stand before you. Why won't you pray for clarity? And she said, I've never had it. I'll pray for trust. Trust is something I have. And so I know that we crave certainty, we crave clarity, but it's often in these places that our faith deepens and we learn how to trust God in new ways. I've noticed that this has shaken things up. And again, it's a lot like family, that any of the sadness or even the anger that you feel is probably the result of a deep love and affection that you feel for the peep grasses and that you feel for this group of people, this community. So it's the flip side of the same coin, and it's what comes with caring, right? Passion means suffering. And I think we learn that as life goes on. So Noel asked that I step in with Mark, who was here with you last week, and help kind of navigate what's next for Exeter Valley Church. I lead Confluence churches, the family of churches that you belong to. And so I've been meeting with Noel and Megan for 12 years. But really, we've been meeting quite often for the last year, and I just want to come and say what I've seen from where I sit. I don't sit where you sit. I sit in a different spot, but I just wanted to share some of the things that I've seen. And then we're going to open our Bibles together, if that's all right with you. Last November, late November, maybe early December, Noel's like, can we get lunch? We get lunch. Noel says, something's up, like something's different. I'm sensing some leading, some prompting from the Lord. And my main responsibility in leading our region of churches is to talk church planters out of quitting. I'm really skilled at it. I'm really good at it because for 20 years I've talked myself out of quitting. So on Mondays, when a church planter phones, I'm usually like, it's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Everything's fine. Just suck it up. So that's what I said to Noel. He's like, man, I don't think I'm the right person for the role. And I was like, welcome to Monday, bro. Like, if you feel this way in 1 year, then come talk to me. But of course you're going to go through seasons. You're going to go, right? Like, we get that. There's going to be dips, and there's going to be mountaintops, and there's going to be valleys. So I gave him that speech, and it didn't let up. And then in January, something similar happened with a group of pastors where, again, a lot of pastors, Mark in particular, really good at like trying to fix stuff, and very good exhorter, very good at saying, buck up, what did you expect? Keep trucking. Like that's Mark's way of fixing just about everything, But I found myself going like, this is starting to be really interesting to me, just because Noel's a lot of things, but a quitter is not one of them. So a lot of times when people are really quick to tap, you have to tell them like, come on, man, you're going to be fine. Suck it up, But when someone doesn't ever tap, it gets really interesting when they're like, I'm feeling like I'm supposed to stop, because that's not been my experience with Noel. The other thing that was really interesting to me, because I have a lot of years with Megan too, is in talking with Megan, she was saying things like, I feel like God's really proud of us. And if you know Megan well, you know that she can sometimes be pretty hard on herself. So I was not expecting her to say like, I think God is applauding the lap that we've run and even the obedience of handing off the baton. So I'm like, well, this doesn't sound like Noel, and this doesn't really sound like Megan, and it doesn't really sound like the devil. When I meet with people who are wanting to quit, it's usually because they're despairing and not focusing on how proud of them God is. You know what I mean? They're usually rehearsing lies. And that's what's led them to the place of wanting to stop. And when I met with them, I was kind of like, Noel's like surrendering, and Megan's receiving the love of God. I guess I can't just dismiss this as some sort of typical Monday dip. Do you know what I mean? Is this helpful? Okay. Well, this is what I've seen. And I think from the beginning, my hope, my number one priority in stepping into this is to preserve the planters, not actually to preserve the plant. I'm stepping in to preserve the planters. Sometimes pastors work really hard and they need people to fight for them as well. So in stepping in, my number one goal was to not lose the peep grasses. And I just want to applaud you guys, because it feels like that's what's happening. Like I get report after report of the church extending kindness and grace to them and understanding and going, I see where you're coming from, and I'm going to trust God in this situation. So I just want to say thank you. The reports that I've gotten, even those of you who are like ticked, it's because you love them and you can see that. It's because you care about them and this. The second priority that I laid out from Noel from the beginning is to preserve this work. So to preserve the plant that's gone on. So we're really proud of you. Like, I don't know if you know this, but 60% of church plants fail. So this is exceptional in that it's made it through the third year. So what you guys have done is no small thing, and you should be pretty proud of what you've done. And we want the work to have a lasting impact in the city of Exeter. And third, the goal would be to reach Exeter. I know that that's your goal as well, but I want a future for this church, and I want to reach Exeter. So these are our priorities. So I have a few ideas about this, and a bunch of other people have a few ideas about this too. And so we've been weighing that together. But I want to speak to you this morning like from the book of Joshua. So it's pretty close to the book of Deuteronomy, if you want to turn there. Because we've got some ideas, but don't necessarily feel like we have specific clarity or answers. And I know that many of you are here and like, I don't want to be talked to in general. I want specifics. Tell me the plan. And so because I can't provide some of the clarity I think we all crave, I'm right there with you. I'm right there in your desire to have a plan so that I can trust in that plan. But often in Scripture, I'm finding that there's not much of a plan, and we continue to be called to trust a person even when the plan's not clear. So I want to read to you from the first chapter of Joshua, which is everybody's favorite book when you're going through a transition, right? Be strong and courageous is the cry of the first chapter. Obviously, God's having to tell Joshua to be strong and courageous because he is not strong and not courageous. He is scared. That's why the reminder consistently needs to come. So, after 40 years of wandering the desert, huge transition in place, the people of God are called to cross the Jordan, enter the promised land. Chapter 1, verse 1, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan into the land that I'm about to give them to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot as I promised to Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river, the Euphrates, to the Hittite country, to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave to you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So Joshua ordered the officers of the people, go through the camp, tell the people, get your provisions ready. 3 days from now, you will cross the Jordan here to go in and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you for your own. Israel is a brand new nation, a nation plant. They're brand new. Moses was the only leader they'd ever had. Moses led them out of Egypt, and as you probably know, into 40 years of wandering together. Joshua is about to lead in a very different context. Joshua knows wandering in the wilderness. He's been taught that by Moses, but Joshua is about to lead them into a time of warring, not wandering. Moses has coached him up in desert survival. Moses has led him to know how to lead people through like eating manna every day without complaining. He's led him to follow a cloud by day and a fire by night. Joshua learned wandering, but he was needing to war in order to inherit this land. So he is needing to be told over and over again, be strong and be courageous, because he's stepping into uncertainty, uncertain days. But here's what God gives him. God gives him certain things to produce a certainty inside of him, because he knows this is uncharted territory. This is something he's never seen or led into. And he says, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I'll never leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give to them. It's impossible for us to overstate what wandering in the desert would have produced. 40 years of taking laps. Some of you are older than others, and you know what this is like. 40 years of going in circles produces a fair amount of cynicism. You're not exactly on your front foot thinking things can change when it's been the same for 40 years, right? Is that how you feel about your spouse after 40 years? Oh, something's going to change. No. You're like, you've settled. And I think they've settled with the wandering to some degree. And it is impossible to overstate what the loss of Moses must have meant. This is God's mouthpiece. The greatest leader, the only pastor and prophet they ever knew, was gone. And now they're being told not just to hunker down and grieve their loss, but they're being asked to advance, having just lost their leader. How wild. They get an order to go forward when they've lost their leader. This courage is produced by a couple of things that I see here, because I know that many of us are needing courage to move forward in the face of losing what feels like a primary leader. So the first thing I want you to see in this is that courage came from a clear assignment. There was clarity, and that clarity produced courage. It wasn't courage unto anything and everything. It wasn't courage for the sake of courage. It was courage to do what God was asking them to do. Moses, my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land I'm giving to them, to the people of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, just as I promised to Moses. Now that's pretty clear. Is it not? This clear assignment, I think, brought a rise of faith. Faith comes from hearing from the word of the Lord, and they heard, and there was a rise of courage and faith. A clear call came their way, and it encouraged them. But notice what's missing. You've been wandering the desert for 40 years, and then the new leader steps in, and he's like, we're going to inherit the promised land. Your first response is probably an eye roll. Like, we've been trying to inherit the promised land for quite some time. Nice try, hotshot. That's probably your first response. Then the second response is he says, get ready. We're about to cross the Jordan. And the big question for me, if I'm there with my family and my 5 daughters, is to go, hey, you know what's missing, buddy? A plan. How are we getting across a river? All we know how to do is wander, and now you're asking us to war. There's giants in that land. How exactly is over 500,000 people getting across that river? Where's the plan? And until you put forth the plan, I'm not going to take another step. So there's some details that are missing, namely the how in the heck are we going to do this? It's not there. And I wish I could tell you, as somebody who's read the Bible, that this is an exception. But it's not. People who are often asking for clarity are told to trust. And you know that because you've probably followed God for some time and know that life doesn't produce the clarity that you sometimes hope. The second thing that produces a ton of courage, in chapter 3, there's a really interesting call, which is to consecrate yourselves. Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow God's going to move. Again, how is he going to move? What's he going to do? That's not there. But the call is to consecrate yourself. Surrender your life. I know that the obedience that Noel and Megan are stepping into has triggered in me and in others a question going, am I doing what God's called me to do? Has that happened for you? It's like when someone steps out in obedience, it causes you to go, hey, wait a second. Am I just going through the motions, or am I doing what God's asked me to do? And that's a great question to ask. And here's what I would say to you, church. Consecrate yourself. You can't go wrong in surrendering your life to him, in surrendering and opening your hands afresh and saying, my life is yours. You're the Lord of my life. I think it'll produce a fair amount of courage. Number 2, courage came when God said, I'm with you. I know it did. God's presence, it produces a courage in us. And God says to him, I promise I'll go with you. I'll never leave you or forsake you. He doesn't say, hey, you're not going without a battle. In fact, the days ahead were full of warring, full of trusting, full of battle, but they were also full of God's presence. He was going to go with them. If the presence of other people brings comfort to us, how much more so does the presence of God with us bring us comfort? Even when we don't necessarily have comfort or clarity in the plan, his presence and his promise. And as I talked to people yesterday, I was hearing that when I asked the question, what's God doing in you through this? A number of people said something very similar. Like, I feel like God's with me. I sense his presence and his comfort. When we think about anyone's presence, the first thing we think about is comfort. To have you by my side brings me so much courage and comfort. But it should be noted that it's not just comfort to have someone by your side. It's also a fair amount of challenge and command. That God doesn't come beside you like a comforter in like a down comforter sense. Like, I'm just going to stay back. I'm going to lay down. The comfort of God also comes with clear challenge and command. The way I see this in this text is I think it's pretty, well, I don't want to say mean, but I can think of kinder ways to say Moses is dead. That's like, it's not like, hey, Joshua, Moses is dead, and I'm asking you to lead this thing. How do you feel about leading this thing forward? Talk to me about your insecurities as I ask you to lead this thing forward. It seems pretty clear that's like, hey, Moses is dead, and tell the people to do this, and you're thinking, hey, these people are pretty cynical after 40 years of wandering. Hey, they're probably not going to listen to me because, Moses was the man. He was the mouthpiece for a lot of time. Hey, God, can we talk about this for a second? Moses is dead. I'm calling you to step out and step forward. So know that when I say God's presence brings us comfort, he also challenges us and commands us, because he's not just a savior to bail us out. He's Lord, and he tells us what to do. Amen? As I was with Moses, I'm going to be with you. The last thing is that courage is anchored in God's revealed word. So only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses, my servant, commanded you. Don't turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you might have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. Listen, our sense of clarity and call changes with time. Am I right? You've experienced that. Our sense of God's presence ebbs and flows. Have you experienced that? He's right there with me. Where have you gone? You know? You're closer than a brother. Why have you forsaken me? Like our sense of his presence in our life changes. And our sense of clarity in what we're doing changes. God's word never changes. His revealed word and the promises in it produce in us a courage. It's foundational. The word of the Lord, it stands forever and it anchors us in this storm. We have these precious promises that we've been given. And he's saying to them, like, hey, if you want to succeed, rehearse those precious promises. And I want to say to you, Exeter Valley Church, if you want to succeed, rehearse those promises that he's been given. We don't have clarity yet, but we do have his word, and it's a foundation for us. Courage will grow for us. Worship team, would you guys come? Courage will grow for us in the midst of this transition. If you, one, consecrate yourself afresh. Your kingdom come, God, your will be done. Not my kingdom come, my will be done. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Consecrate yourselves before him. Remember, his presence is with us, and he promised to never leave us or forsake us, even when it feels like Noel and Megan are leaving us and forsaking us. God will never leave us or forsake us. Take comfort in his presence.